12-year-old Malik was so excited that he could barely sit still. This was his first time flying on a plane, and he had been looking forward to this trip for months. His mother sat beside him, smiling as she watched him press his face against the window. They were flying to visit his grandparents, and Malik had been counting down the days. He had packed his favorite snacks, a book, and his headphones, ready for the journey. As the passengers boarded the plane, Malik looked around in amazement. Everything felt so new. The sound of people talking, the flight attendants moving up and down the aisle, the beeping of seatbelt signs. He couldn't wait for the plane to take off. Just as he was adjusting his seatbelt, a flight attendant walked toward them. She was tall, wearing a neat uniform with a name tag pinned to her chest. Her face looked serious as she stopped right beside their row. Malik glanced at his mother, feeling a little nervous. "Excuse me," the flight attendant said in a firm voice. "I need to see your boarding passes." Malik's mother quickly pulled out the tickets from her bag and handed them over. The flight attendant looked at them for a moment, then shook her head. "There's a problem," she said. "This seat isn't valid. You'll need to leave the plane." Malik's heart sank. What did she mean? They had booked the tickets weeks ago. His mother frowned in confusion. "There must be a mistake," his mother said politely. "We have assigned seats. These are our tickets." The flight attendant didn't seem interested in hearing more. She sighed and crossed her arms. "I'm sorry, but you have to leave," she said, her voice sharper this time. Passengers nearby started turning their heads. Some looked confused, others curious. Malik felt heat rising to his face. He had never been in a situation like this before. His mother tried again, her voice calm but firm. "There is no mistake. We have the right seats." The flight attendant shook her head again, not even looking at the tickets properly. Instead, she signaled for another crew member. Within moments, an airport security officer arrived. "Please come with me," the officer said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Malik felt like the whole plane was staring at them now. His mother clenched her jaw, but didn't argue anymore. She took a deep breath, grabbed Malik's backpack, and stood up. As they walked toward the exit, Malik's heart pounded. He had never felt so embarrassed. They had done nothing wrong, yet they were being forced off the plane like they didn't belong. Just before stepping out, Malik turned his head one last time. A few passengers were watching with concern. One woman in the back had her phone raised, recording the whole thing. Malik didn't know it yet, but this moment was about to change everything. Malik and his mother stepped off the plane, feeling confused and frustrated. The moment they entered the airport terminal, Malik saw his mother take a deep breath. She was upset, but she didn't want to show it. Malik, however, couldn't hide how he felt. His hands clenched into fists as he looked at the plane through the large glass windows. They had been looking forward to this trip for so long, and now, just like that, they were kicked off. "Why did she do that, Mom?" Malik asked, his voice shaking. "We had our tickets. We were sitting in the right seats." His mother sighed and rubbed her forehead. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we're not going to let this ruin our trip. Let's talk to the airline staff and fix this." They walked over to the customer service desk, where a woman in a uniform greeted them with a polite but tired smile. Malik's mother explained everything that had happened, showing their tickets again. The woman checked her computer, her fingers tapping quickly on the keyboard. After a few moments, she looked up, frowning. "I'm really sorry about this," she said. "Your tickets are completely valid. There was no reason for you to be removed from that flight." Malik's eyes widened. His mother's expression remained calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Then why did they make us leave?" she asked. The woman at the desk hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I can rebook you on the next flight. There's one leaving in 2 hours." Malik's mother nodded. "All right, please do that." As the woman started working on their new tickets, Malik pulled out his phone. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he felt restless. He wanted answers. Just then, He noticed a group of passengers from their original flight standing nearby, whispering among themselves. Some of them were looking at their phones, shaking their heads. Curious, Malik leaned closer, trying to hear what they were saying. "Did you see the video?" one man asked. "It's all over social media," a woman replied. "That flight attendant had no reason to do that. People are furious." Malik blinked in surprise. Video, social media. He quickly opened an app on his phone and started scrolling. It didn't take long to find what they were talking about. Someone had recorded the entire moment when he and his mother were forced off the plane. The video showed the flight attendant speaking coldly, refusing to listen, and then calling security without a clear reason. The person who posted it had written, "This is not okay. This mother and her son had valid tickets. Why were they removed?" Malik stared at the screen. The video already had thousands of views. Comments poured in, some from angry travelers, others demanding answers from the airline. His heart started pounding. Something was happening, and he wasn't sure what, but one thing was clear. People were paying attention. Malik couldn't stop staring at his phone. The video of him and his mother being forced off the plane was spreading fast. Every time he refreshed the page, the number of views went up. The comments were filled with people demanding answers from the airline. Some were tagging news channels, while others were saying they would never fly with that airline again. His mother glanced at his screen. "What are you looking at?" she asked. Malik showed her the video. She watched silently, her face unreadable. When it ended, she sighed and shook her head. "I don't want to focus on this right now. We just need to get on the next flight." But Malik could tell that deep down, she was just as upset as he was. They had done nothing wrong, yet they were embarrassed in front of so many people. And now, thousands, maybe even millions, of strangers were seeing it happen too. Just then, a voice spoke from behind them. "Excuse me." Malik turned around. A woman in a red sweater stood there, holding her phone. He recognized her as one of the passengers from their flight. She smiled kindly. "I just wanted to say that what happened to you was really unfair. I was sitting a few rows behind you, and I saw everything. That flight attendant was wrong." "Thank you," Malik's mother said, nodding. "It means a lot to hear that." The woman hesitated, then said, "I don't know if you've seen it yet, but the video of what happened is going viral. People are really upset. I think the airline is going to have to respond soon." Malik's mother nodded again, but she still looked tired. "We just want to get where we're going." The woman gave them an encouraging smile. "I understand, but I just wanted you to know. People are on your side." As the woman walked away, Malik checked his phone again. More people were talking about the video. Then, suddenly, he saw something that made his heart race. The official account of the airline had posted a message. "We are aware of a situation involving a passenger removal on Flight 372. We are currently reviewing the incident and will provide an update soon." Malik's eyes widened. The airline knew what had happened. They couldn't ignore it anymore. Just then, an airline worker approached them. She looked nervous, glancing at Malik's mother with an apologetic expression. "Ma'am, we sincerely regret what happened earlier. Please follow me. A senior manager would like to speak with you." Malik exchanged a look with his mother. Something was changing. Just a few minutes ago, they had been treated unfairly. Now the airline seemed to be scrambling to make things right. As they followed the worker through the terminal, Malik had a strange feeling. He didn't know what was about to happen next, but one thing was certain. This was far from over. Malik and his mother followed the airline worker through the busy terminal. Malik's heart pounded as he walked. Just an hour ago, they had been forced off a plane for no reason. Now suddenly, the airline wanted to talk. The worker led them into a quiet office near the boarding gates. Inside, a man in a dark suit sat at a desk. He looked important, with a serious expression on his face. As they entered, he stood up and extended his hand. "Hello, "I'm Mr. Daniels, the customer service manager for this airport," he said. "Please, have a seat." Malik and his mother sat down. Mr. Daniels cleared his throat and folded his hands on the desk. "First, let me start by saying how deeply sorry we are for what happened," he said. "The way you were treated was unacceptable, and we are looking into the matter." Malik looked at his mother. She still seemed calm, but he could tell she wasn't easily convinced. "We had valid tickets," she said firmly. "That flight attendant didn't even listen to us." Mr. Daniels nodded. "You're absolutely right. I have reviewed your boarding passes, and I can confirm that you were assigned those seats. There was no reason for you to be removed from the plane." Malik felt frustration bubbling inside him. If they knew this now, why didn't anyone stop it earlier? "So what happens now?" his mother asked. Mr. Daniels sighed. "We are currently investigating the flight attendant's actions. In the meantime, we want to make this right. We have rebooked you on the next flight, and we are upgrading you both to first-class seating as a gesture of apology." Malik's eyes widened. First class. He had only seen those seats in movies. Big, comfortable seats with extra space and fancy meals. His mother, however, didn't look impressed. "This isn't just about a better seat," she said. "My son was embarrassed. We were treated unfairly in front of a whole plane full of people. And now, everyone online is talking about it." Mr. Daniels nodded again. "I understand. We are working on a public statement to address the situation. We never want any passenger to feel the way you did today." Malik looked at his mother. He could see she was still upset, but she took a deep breath. "We'll take the flight," she finally said. Mr. Daniels handed them their new tickets. "Your flight board's in 30 minutes. Again, I truly apologize." As Malik and his mother left the office, he checked his phone again. The video had doubled in views. People were still talking about it. Malik didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. This story was far from over. Malik and his mother walked back toward their gate, holding their new tickets. The idea of sitting in first class felt exciting, but Malik still couldn't shake the feeling of what had happened earlier. He had never been treated that way before. His mother sighed as they found a seat near the boarding area. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking at him. Malik shrugged. "I guess. It just doesn't feel right." His mother nodded. "I know. But sometimes people's actions say more about them than about us." Malik thought about that for a moment, then looked down at his phone. The video was still spreading like wildfire. More people were sharing it, commenting on it, and tagging the airline. A famous news reporter had even retweeted it, saying, "This should never happen to anyone. The airline needs to take responsibility." Just then, the announcement for their new flight came over the speakers. Passengers lined up at the gate, but before Malik and his mother could join them, another airline worker approached them. She looked nervous, but her smile was friendly. "Hello, I just wanted to personally escort you both to your seats," she said. "Please follow me." Malik glanced at his mother, who raised an eyebrow, but nodded. They followed the worker past the other passengers and straight onto the plane. This time, nobody stopped them. As soon as they entered, Malik's eyes widened. First class was even nicer than he imagined. The seats were huge, covered in soft leather, with plenty of legroom. A small table sat between each seat, and a flight attendant was already offering drinks to the passengers. Malik and his mother settled into their seats. The flight attendant, a different one from earlier, smiled warmly. "Welcome aboard. Please let me know if you need anything." Malik looked out the window, taking a deep breath. This time, there was no fear of being asked to leave. As passengers finished boarding, Malik heard whispers around him. Some people were pointing at him and his mother, others checking their phones. He realized many of them had probably seen the video. Then something unexpected happened. A man sitting a few rows ahead turned around and gave Malik a nod. "I saw what happened earlier," he said. "Glad to see you back on board." A woman across the aisle spoke up too. That flight attendant was completely out of line. The way she treated you wasn't right. More people nodded in agreement. Malik felt a warm feeling in his chest. For the first time since it all happened, he didn't feel so alone. His mother squeezed his hand gently. "See," she whispered. "People are standing with us." As the plane prepared for takeoff, Malik realized something important. Sometimes, the best kind of justice isn't about revenge. It's about people standing together and making sure the truth is heard. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Malik leaned back in his seat, trying to process everything that had happened. He had gone from being kicked off a flight to sitting in first class, surrounded by people who supported him. It felt unreal. The flight attendant from before, the one who had treated them badly, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, another flight attendant, a kind-looking man, came over with a warm smile. "Would you like something to drink before takeoff?" he asked politely. Malik shook his head, but his mother smiled. "Just some water, please." As the attendant walked away, Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a notification. His heart skipped a beat. The airline had just posted another statement. "We deeply regret the incident that occurred on Flight 372 earlier today. We are conducting a full investigation, and the employee involved has been placed on leave. We sincerely apologize to the passengers affected." Malik showed the post to his mother. She read it silently, her lips pressed together. "They're trying to do damage control," she said, "but at least they're admitting it was wrong." Malik wasn't sure how to feel. The flight attendant who had kicked them off the plane was now under investigation. Would she lose her job? Would she apologize? He didn't know. He scrolled through the comments under the airline's post. Some people were happy the airline was taking action. Others said it wasn't enough. An apology isn't enough. This shouldn't have happened in the first place. Good. I hope the airline learns from this. I fly with this airline all the time. If they don't fix their training, I'll take my business elsewhere. Malik sighed and put his phone down. He didn't want to think about it anymore. Right now, he just wanted to enjoy the flight. As the plane lifted into the sky, he looked out the window. The airport grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared beneath the clouds. A sense of relief washed over him. Finally, they were on their way. A little while later, the flight attendant returned with their meals. "I just want to say," he said quietly, "I saw the video. I think what happened to you was unfair. I'm really sorry you went through that." Malik's mother smiled softly. "Thank you. We appreciate that." The man nodded and walked away, leaving Malik with a strange feeling in his chest. He had been angry before, but now he just felt tired. His mother reached over and squeezed his hand. "No matter what, we held our heads high," she said. "That's what matters." Malik nodded slowly. Maybe she was right. Maybe the best revenge wasn't about getting back at someone. It was about showing the world the truth. The plane flew smoothly through the clouds, and Malik tried to relax. The soft hum of the engines filled the cabin, and most of the passengers were either watching movies or resting. But Malik couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. His mother sat beside him, flipping through a magazine, but Malik could tell her mind was elsewhere too. Every few minutes, she would glance at her phone, then shake her head as if trying to push away her thoughts. Malik sighed and picked up his phone again. He wasn't sure why he kept checking, but something told him this wasn't over yet. As soon as he refreshed his social media feed, his eyes widened. A new video had been posted, this time by a news channel. It wasn't just about them anymore. The video showed interviews with other passengers who had witnessed the incident. One man, who had been sitting near them, spoke into the camera. "I saw the whole thing. They did nothing wrong. That flight attendant was completely out of line." Another woman added, "I've been flying for years, and I've never seen anything like it. The airline needs to do better." Malik felt a mix of emotions: shock, frustration, and even a little bit of relief. People weren't letting this go. They were speaking up, demanding change. His mother must have noticed his expression because she leaned over. "What is it?" Malik showed her the video. She watched it carefully, then sighed. "It's getting bigger," she said quietly. Before Malik could respond, the flight attendant who had been serving them earlier returned. "Excuse me," he said politely. "The captain just informed me that someone from the airline's headquarters wants to speak with you both after we land." Malik and his mother exchanged surprised looks. "Who?" his mother asked. "I'm not sure," the flight attendant admitted, "but they said it's important." Malik's heart pounded. This was more serious than he thought. First, the airline had apologized online. Now, someone from their headquarters wanted to meet them in person. His mother nodded. "All right, we'll be there." As the flight attendant walked away, Malik turned back to the window. The sky outside was endless, stretching far beyond what he could see. He took a deep breath. Just a few hours ago, he had felt powerless. He had felt small. But now things were changing. People had seen what happened. People cared. And now, the airline itself was being forced to listen. Malik didn't know what would happen when they landed, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about making sure something like this never happened to anyone else. And for the first time, since the whole thing started, he felt something close to hope. As the plane began its descent, Malik's hands felt sweaty. His mother sat beside him, looking calm, but he could tell she was thinking about the same thing. Who exactly wanted to meet them after they landed? And what did they want to say? The moment the plane touched down, Malik let out a slow breath. He was relieved the flight was over, but he knew the real moment of truth was about to happen. After the seatbelt sign turned off, the flight attendant returned with a polite smile. "Please stay seated for a moment," he said. "Someone from the airline will meet you at the gate." Malik's heart pounded as he and his mother watched other passengers gather their bags and leave. A few of them gave them encouraging nods on the way out. Finally, when the cabin was almost empty, another airline employee stepped inside. He was a middle-aged man in a suit, carrying a serious but polite expression. "Mrs. Johnson, Malik?" he asked. Malik's mother nodded. "Yes, that's us. My name is Mr. Reynolds. I work for the airline's corporate office. May I speak with you for a moment?" They followed him off the plane and into a quiet meeting room inside the airport. Mr. Reynolds gestured for them to sit. "First of all, let me personally apologize for what happened," he began. "The way you were treated on that flight was unacceptable, and I want you to know we are taking this very seriously." Malik watched his mother carefully. She nodded but didn't say anything yet. Mr. Reynolds continued, "We have spoken with the crew and reviewed the reports. The flight attendant responsible has been placed on indefinite leave while we complete our investigation." Malik's mother finally spoke. "This isn't just about one flight attendant," she said. "This is about how your airline treats its passengers. How do we know this won't happen to someone else?" Mr. Reynolds sighed and leaned forward. "That's exactly why we're here. We want to do better. We are launching new training programs to make sure something like this doesn't happen again, and we would like to invite you both to be part of that process." Malik's eyes widened. "Us?" Mr. Reynolds nodded. "We believe hearing real experiences can help improve the way we train our employees. We want to listen to passengers like you." Malik looked at his mother. He could tell she was thinking carefully. Finally, she nodded. "We'll consider it. But we need to see real change, not just words." Mr. Reynolds smiled. "That's fair." As they left the meeting, Malik felt lighter. The journey had been difficult, but in the end, they had made a difference. And maybe, just maybe, things would be better for the next passengers who stepped onto a plane.